Recording in progress.
Members of council, ladies and gentlemen, the clerk advises me that it is now 7 o'clock. So I will bring this December 8th council meeting to order, and I would ask you please to stand and join with me in a moment of silent reflection, our national anthem, and I will read the traditional land acknowledgement.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We acknowledge the land we gather on is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We recognize the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee people. We also acknowledge the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people who live on these lands today. We commit to working towards reconciliation. Thank you. Madam Clerk, agenda announcements and/or amendments. I know there's some.
Thank you. There was a revised agenda posted on Friday, December 5th with some additions and updates to the agenda. We wanted to note that all written submissions have been circulated to council in advance of this evening's meeting. The delegation of TJ Chichura has been withdrawn with respect to item 7.1. That's the public meeting regarding staff report DS 7125. Later on tonight's agenda, we have one statutory public meeting scheduled regarding a town-initiated housekeeping amendment to Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 16/2014 and Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 144/2003, both as amended. During the course of the live meeting, members of the public in attendance will be given the opportunity to speak to this application either in person or remotely. Members of the public who wish to speak at this public meeting can connect via phone only by dialing 1-866-511-0021. These instructions will be given at later point in the agenda when we'll be holding the public meeting, and information about how to connect remotely will be scrolling across the live stream video. Lastly, we've received delegation requests from Wendy Roberts regarding item 9.7, Milton Community Fund allocations, and Stephanie Fleming regarding item 9.1, Slessor Square LP Inc. for tonight's meeting. And they have been received since the council agenda was posted with a revision on Friday. So council will need to pass the procedural motions to waive rules in order to add these delegations to section 6 of the agenda. And we'll have these procedural motions ready for the chair at the appropriate time.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And as our policy and procedures usually take over, we're on a rotating basis, and Councillor Ali will be assuming the chair in a very short while there as well to deal with some of those items that you had just mentioned. Any member of council, any disclosures this evening? Councillor Challoner and then Councillor Marshall.
Thanks, Your Worship. I have a conflict of interest with respect to item 9.1 as I currently lead an organization that is to receive funds potentially.
Thank you. So noted. Councillor Marshall.
Conflict with respect to item, excuse me, 9.7. My husband's on the committee.
Thank you. Any further disclosures? Seeing none, again, I'm going to take a moment. While I have the chair here to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a happy 2026. And of course, on the assumption that our bylaws pass, all the bylaws as listed tonight, there's a total of 117 bylaws that will have been passed for the year 2025. So really a message is that it's been busy. When I say busy, not only us elected people, but particularly staff, to make sure that everything's in order. So I just want to acknowledge the importance of the laws and bylaws that's created by this council. So if you would just give us a few moments, Councillor Ali will assume the chair and we'll get underway here. So, and I know there's a few changes that has to happen.
Hello and welcome to tonight's meeting, everybody. This is Councillor Ali, Regional Councillor Ward 4, chairing tonight's meeting. Welcome to the Town Hall. we'll get right down to business. And before we move on to our different sections, we do have to go through some procedural motions to allow two delegations to come to the floor tonight. And those delegations are of Wendy Roberts and Stephanie Fleming. And we have the procedural motions right here, and I'm going to go through them one by one. It is moved by Councillor Best and seconded by Councillor Malbouf. Be it resolved that the pertinent rules of procedure bylaw 1014-2024 be waived to permit the addition of the following delegation for item 9.7. And this is for Wendy Roberts, speaking on behalf of Sustainable Milton. We do need 2/3 of the council to support this, so I'm just going to call the vote on this now. All those in favor? And that is approved unanimously. Moving on to the second procedural motion, moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Malbouf. Be it resolved that the pertinent rules of procedure bylaw 014-2024 be waived to permit the addition of the following delegation for item 9.1. Stephanie Fleming, Slessor Square LP Inc. And I will now call the vote. All those in favor? Moved passed unanimously. And with that, we move on to the consent items portion of the agenda. And we have quite a few items here. And I'm going to first ask my colleagues if they want to pull out any items. Councillor Challoner.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 5.7, please.
Okay, perfect. I had it noted down before you spoke. Anybody else? Any item they want to pull out of the consent agenda? Seeing none, Councillor Challoner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. My question is to the treasurer. First, on the capital side, where do we expect to be by the end of the year in terms of the percentage jobs completed? And the second question is, my assumption is that there's carryover provisions for whatever work needs to be done following December 31st.
Through the chair on the capital, currently we're seeing about activity in the order of about $6 to $7 million a month in spending out of the capital. We usually see a little bit more in December as we process things like accruals. So we do expect to push towards the 60% level, which is about in line with historical levels that we've seen in recent years. To your point, it is a multi-year plan and a multi-year program. So what you see in the unspent typically relates to a few larger projects that, such as the transit facility that we've got some approved money for. So we'll summarize those in the year end, and they usually account for, over 3/4 of that unspent.
My other question, Madam Chair, to Glenn is with respect to the operating account. And it's now, roughly the second week of December. Where are we in terms of the operating budget in terms of surplus? And do we estimate that the surplus is going to be what you thought it might be a month ago?
Through the chair, correct. At this time, the 3.6 million that we brought forward in the September variance report is still our best estimate of year end. As we get into late December and early January, we'll be processing a lot more transactions and we'll start to narrow that down even further for council.
Thanks.
Thank you for asking that really important question, Councillor Challoner. And with that, I'm looking around to see if there's any other items anybody wants to pull out. Seeing none, so I'm going to call the vote on the consent items. And it is moved by Councillor Challoner, seconded by Councillor Malbouf, that consent items 5.1 to 5.8 be approved. All those in favor? And that is approved unanimously. Now, we move on to the best part of tonight's meeting, which is the delegations. Get to hear from our residents. And before I move on, I just have to say that we have delegations registered to speak this evening. As a reminder, we are receiving delegations now, and council will consider the related agenda items later on this evening's agenda. Members of council will have the opportunity to ask questions of clarification from the delegation directly, but questions of staff would form part of the discussion of the related staff report listed later on this evening's agenda. And with that, I have our first delegation listed here, Mr. Nick Kirpin. Perfect. Mr. Kirpan, please come over. You are speaking on item 9.1 relating to staff report DS 06725, technical recommendation report, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment by Slessor Square LP Inc. Just as a reminder, you have 5 minutes for this delegation. Go ahead. Okay, wonderful.
All right, that's better. I'd like to offer a heartfelt thank you to the town staff for the thorough review that they did of the developer's proposal for Slessor. And to thank council for taking the time to hear the concerns from the community at the last council meeting. One of the concepts that I'd only peripherally encountered towards the end of my preparation for the last meeting, and we didn't get a chance to address it at the last meeting, was a concept called crime prevention through environmental design. I think we have a huge opportunity in front of us as a community in the plans for growth of Milton towards 500,000 people in the next 20 years. Putting this in perspective, that is going to have Milton exceed the population of a number of provincial capitals. So it's a big change and will be a big city. The opportunity that we have is to conduct this development in such a way that continues to allow for human flourishing, including the discouragement of criminality in our community. Halton has the enviable position of one of the lowest crime rates in Canada, and we'd like to keep it that way. Being a process engineer, I'm keen on process. And one of the things I've noticed in the review of this development and the report from staff is it doesn't mention the words crime or police once. And so I think we have a missing stakeholder or possibly a missing perspective in that of Halton Police or the law enforcement perspective. And that we should be reviewing the design from the perspective of crime prevention through environmental design. So specific to this development and its location, we also have the closing of the police station that's right in that neighborhood. So we're doing this intensification in that part of town at the same time that we're closing that police station and moving it away. I understand that policing doesn't happen from the police station, it happens from police cars. But I think the physical presence of the police there does act as a form of a deterrent to criminality in the neighborhood. I've submitted a summary of the impact in other communities where they have applied crime prevention through environmental design and in specific case studies and best practices including a law enforcement perspective to the review of urban design, and respectfully and humbly request that future high density developments in Milton include that law enforcement perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nick, for your wonderful presentation. You really do raise a valid point there, and I'm sure our staff are making notes and will definitely reach out to Halton Police to see if this is something that we can do here. But they really do raise a good point. Any questions for the delegate from my colleagues here? Seeing none, thank you so much for your delegation. Okay, we are moving on to delegation number 2, which is Mr. Colin Gisson. And he is going to speak regarding item 9.9, which is motion to consider community watch program. Welcome, Mr. Gisson. The mic is open. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mayor, for having us here tonight. So my name is Colin Jessom. I'm the Executive Director for Crime Stoppers of Halton. I think it's very fitting that we follow the delegation just before us regarding SEPTED and concerns in the community. So we're here today to share with you that about a year ago, Councillor Knoll in Oakville had reached out to me and said, would you ever consider, as you run Crime Stoppers for 38 years in this region, would you ever consider running a neighborhood watch type program? Aside from my regular role as Executive Director for Crime Stoppers, I'm also with the OPP. And in that role, we've studied successful neighborhood watch programs throughout the province. So from that background and from that knowledge, and of course with my team here today, part of my team here today, we were able to roll out last year a successful pilot program in Ward 3 in Oakville for Community Watch. This is our modernized name of this program. And this is a pilot with the anticipation and excitement to be able to launch this program to all of Halton Region. So part of our reason for being here today, of course, is that we are looking to expand this to Burlington and, of course, more importantly, Milton here today in Ward 3, continuing our pilot progress and sharing what we've learned with in Oakville and those successes, delivering them to the residents of Milton. For no cost to residents, they get to reap the benefits of a community watch or neighborhood watch style program where they receive free stickers, lawn signs, a regular newsletter, and information seminars and community engagement meetings that we pull together to help deliver tips and tricks to residents to make them feel more secure, to understand the values of CPTED, community protection through environmental design. And of course, as my role as executive director, I do have an office and an officer assigned to me at police headquarters. So our relationship is very strong in understanding what concerns residents? What do residents want relief from, whether it be auto thefts, break-and-enters, home businesses being broken into? We're making sure that we handle what we can from a nonprofit approach, how we can serve the communities better by sharing information and by bringing communities together as one. The days of block parents and neighborhood watch when I was a kid are gone, but we want to do our next best step is to deliver something that makes sense. 38 years we've been operating in Halton Region. We're very proud of that. We made ourselves as a nonprofit through COVID and everything else. And here we stand tall, delivering programs, new programs, and hopefully it'll be received with welcome arms by the residents of Milton. Just going to let my chair here, before I get in trouble, say a couple words too.
No, that's fine. So I'm Karen Roy, the chair of Crime Stoppers of Halton. Really, as Colin said, it's about bringing community together and getting community to help community. As a previous speaker did mention, it does happen with the police, obviously, the enforcement aspect, but there's a lot that residents can do to help with deterring crime in their area, and that's what we want to help, is to bridge that gap, give them the tools that they need, as well as information on how to safeguard their homes, giving them some discounts through some of our partners to facilitate that, and just overall continue to make Halton Region the safest region in Canada and move that to Milton.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. Definitely, as someone who sits on the police board, I know what great work you're doing in other communities of Halton, and very, very warm welcome to you in Milton. And we can't wait to see the good work that you will do here. And with that, I have a speaker for you, Councillor Best. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two questions. First of all, how was the volunteer recruitment? Part of the problem with Neighborhood Watch and Block Parents, which I was participating with 30 years ago, was that the volunteers just disappeared. How are you engaging people in the community?
We're very proud to say we're one of 37 programs, Crime Stopper programs in the province. We're one of 1,700 across the globe. By far, we have more volunteers and more engagement than any other program. We have over 150 volunteers. We have 4 major co-op programs, including high school and university students. This is all run with 1 staff member and a very dedicated board of directors, just over 13 members right now. We've had over 150 volunteers since we came out of COVID, holding strong at that number for the last 4 years.
Well, that's great news. Councillor Minikakis and I sit on the Nasquia Community Consultation Committee, which is one of the last policing committees in Halton. Are you working with your community consultation committees, which are a police organization?
So who we're working with closely now, and we're welcome to open up more doors to anybody who can come and lend a hand to a nonprofit like us to bring this successful program. We'll always welcome. We're working closely with the police service and the resident associations that are in Ward 3. There's 5 of them that are dedicated members of those communities, and we've been working with them since day one to make sure that we are understanding their plight, understanding what their challenges are, what they're concerned about. But as we know, Ward 3 from Milton is very different than Ward 3 Oakville. So this is why we're still in this pilot phase to understand what more we need to learn about the residents in those areas.
Thank you. I look forward to meeting you more.
Thank you, sir.
Anything further, Councillor Best? No? Okay. Well, Mayor Krantz is next.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And again, if we were to drill right down, and I've always been very, very supportive of Crime Stoppers, what could the average individual expect moving forward? And again, Madam Chair, that's one question. And again, the other question is Ward 3. There's 4 wards in Milton, and I always attempt to treat everyone equally. So there's got to be a reason maybe for singling out Ward 3, is there? And I'd be interested to know what that might be.
We do, Mr. Mayor. I have one of our partners here who has a little bit more of that data, if he's going to come up here and share that with you briefly. And then, and your first question again, sir, sorry, one more time.
Always been
Oh,
very,
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. The expectations. So, very high level, we offer, of course, working with our partners in the police service and beyond. We have our newsletter that goes out, which tips and tricks, things to look forward to. We had an unfortunate resident who was a victim of a home invasion. We interviewed him and let him share his story so that residents can learn about the ramifications of some of his actions. He was very much a Rambo in the situation. Thankfully, he came out unharmed. But these are very scary situations for people. So we're bringing those stories to the forefront, inclusive of our free lawn signs, window stickers, awareness campaigns like that. We also have our street signs throughout the region that also will be displaying Community Watch as one of our pushes.
just, Madam Chair, just to follow up, would those window stickers be coming back? Because at least in my opinion, I think they were fairly effective.
Will they be coming back?
Yeah.
Yes. So I brought actually samples for here for all the councillors too. So I'll be leaving that with everybody tonight, inclusive of our newsletter. We have a home inspection report that you can do a self-inspection and so on. Lots of value adds to this program because we want to make sure there's some value there. It is no cost to the residents. It's a service that we're providing the best that we can in conjunction with those residents, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just wanted to add to that as well. So it's not solely just for residents. We also plan on connecting with BIAs like downtown Milton as we expand, and residents, businesses, small businesses within the region in Ward 3, and connecting with them as well. They also have opportunity to display in their businesses that they are part of this Community Watch program, and hopes to deter any type of retail theft and things of that manner.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, and guests. Just to answer your question about why we chose Ward 3. So our plan is to expand to all of Milton, but we know that starting in one specific ward will help us understand the region better, understand the town better, and kind of create a model that works for Milton the best. Ward 3 stood out for a couple of reasons. Firstly, so we have a crime analyst team at Crime Stoppers made up of volunteers who dedicate their time with us to analyze crimes around the region and then provide suggestions to the board of directors. So they suggested that Ward 3 is the optimal location. One being that all the crimes that occur in Ward 3 seem to more align with something that a Community Watch program could suppress. So something like a break-in, auto thefts, property damage. Those are typically crimes that a Community Watch program could deter, in contrast to something like impaired driving, which is harder to have us support with. Secondly, it's a big aspect of the perception of crime. A lot of people think it's coming from Peel, Brampton, Mississauga, and Ward 3 is situated just between Milton and those regions. We feel that this will help residents in Ward 3 feel more engaged and feel like they're the barrier, the buffer between us and another region that's not within Halton. So for these reasons, in addition to being a distance away from the 401, which allows us to study crime specifically in Milton rather than those occurring off the highway, we chose Ward 3, but the plan is obviously to expand in the coming months. So I hope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are wonderful questions, and thanks for bringing up the question about Ward 3. I have a question if any of my colleagues don't have any other questions. My question is about the tip line, and a lot of the community members don't know or want to know if it's anonymous and what happens when they call the number, if you can elaborate that.
Madam Chair, I get so excited about Community Watch, I forget about the 1-800 tip line often. Thank you for reminding me. We've been famously manning a 1-800-222-TIPS line for managing anonymous tips. So residents can call the police service 911 in an emergency. They can call the non-emergency line to report some sort of crime or afterthought of a crime. But there's no option for anonymity. A lot of new Canadians come from areas where they don't trust the police service, or they themselves are in conflict with the law and they don't want to get involved, but they have information they can share with us. So Crime Stoppers has been successful for that reason alone. We offered up to $2,000 rewards for tips that lead to an arrest. not conviction, but arrest. So we fundraise and we work with sponsors and partners to make sure we have that funding, to make sure that we can keep pushing this agenda. I'm happy to say, though, that less than 10% of residents in the Halton region collect on their rewards. Their comments on our reward tips hotline is that they just want to do good for their community. So we're still here offering that anonymous line, though. It's very important. And this also goes hand in hand with our Community Watch program.
Thank you so much. So people who really use the Facebook groups for tips can actually call a number and do good work.
That's correct.
Thank you so much. And with that, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on to delegation number 3. It is from Marina Husoon regarding item 9.6 staff report DS 06925. We make Milton official plan public engagement. I can see Marina walking up. Please turn on the mic and you have 5 minutes.
Right. Well, I did practice my presentation and it was less than 5 minutes. So hopefully I won't get shut down before I finish my presentation this evening. Good evening, Madam Chair, Your Worship, councillors. We want to congratulate Jill Hogan and her team for a truly impressive and excellent job in producing a complex and multifaceted official plan. In particular, David Twigg and Gail Anderson deserve our thanks for a job well done. The tone of the plan certainly reflects our diverse community and addresses many of the pain points that we continue to experience as our community grows. The town of Milton started the official plan project in 2019, and the subsequent 6 years have encompassed COVID, Bill 185, Bill 197, introducing MZOs, the removal of the region's planning mandate, and of course, the province has changed many things also in that time. Specifically for Sustainable Milton, many of the aspirations for a more sustainable Milton are captured in this official plan. I was very pleased to see that the town will encourage sustainable building practices to minimize the impact on the environment and promote sustainable development and land use patterns that facilitate sustainable mobility, sustainable energy use, and low carbon communities. Vision statements for public transit, reducing dependence on personal vehicles, mapping higher densities to facilitate car-free mobility are all welcome in an effort to make Milton more sustainable. I want to highlight 3 items from the draft plan. The first, the growth plan for Milton was hotly debated during the process of developing this plan, and particularly through Halton Regional Council's approval of ROPA 49 in 2022, which attempted to constrain the urban boundary. We realize that urban boundaries need to be planned decades in advance. However, the unfortunate consequence of this is that the landowners take the long-term plan to the bank, as if their right to development is already cast in stone. A dynamic or stepped plan for boundary expansion based on actual growth during a 10-year timeframe would deliver a better balance and possibly reduce land waste. Sustainable Milton would love to see more agricultural areas and natural heritage systems protected, with the possibility of regaining natural areas if the growth forecasts change along the journey. Secondly, the housing study still earmarks significant amounts of low-density development. 88,000 new housing units are forecast by 2051, of which 58,200, I don't know what the math is, but it's like 60% or something, are expected to be low density. Suburbs or low density subdivisions are highly wasteful of energy and highly wasteful of land. Milton in its entirety had 28,000 people when I moved here in 1988, but now we plan for populations twice that size in one secondary plan. This scale of planning is like building a new town each time a secondary plan is looked at, but it has resulted in oceans of houses with no social core. These are not villages, they are featureless dormitories. We hope that the developers will do better under the guidance of this new plan, with higher density nodes, more village life to be incorporated into the future urban structure. I'm going to run out of time here. By the year 2051, Milton's land use growth and development policies must deliver a net zero energy community. What does that mean in terms of this planning document? What it means is that if we follow this plan, our community must be burning no new fossil fuels by 2051, and we must generate enough clean energy to compensate for whatever fossil fuels are still being burned. Planning for more public transportation will indeed reduce our vehicle dependence. Increasing density will reduce the amount of energy we need to heat our homes. Although Milton does not currently have a community energy plan, the initiatives that were considered for one back in 2018 still apply today. MEGS is in an ideal position to implement a district energy plan for the MEV, and there could be private sector interest in wind turbines or geothermal systems to add power to the grid. We must stop burning fossil fuels by 2051, and we must also be more efficient with the energy that we use. Every single existing house and every new house built in the future will at some point replace the gas furnace with an electric heat pump. Every new home should be built to a net zero standard from now on. We hope that the visions contained in this plan will be implemented in strong measure over the coming years to bring about a more sustainable Milton. And thank you for the opportunity to finish.
Wow, that was awesome. Right on time. Thank you so much for that wonderful delegation, Marina. I'm sure our staff are really happy to see your positive feedback, and you make some really good suggestions in there too. So I'm sure they're noting that too. I'm going to look around and see if any of my colleagues have any questions of the delegate. I'm seeing none. Thank you so much for your delegation. Next, we have a delegation from Catherine J. regarding item 9.5, staff report DS 07025 Trafalgar Tertiary Plan. Welcome. Just a reminder, you have 5 minutes and away you go.
Through Madam Chair, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Catherine J. I'm a principal at SGL Planning and Design. Here giving a delegation on the tertiary plan for the Trafalgar secondary plan. On behalf of the Milton MP4 landowners group. We've been working for a number of years, preparing and finalizing the tertiary plan. The tertiary plan helps to implement the secondary plan. It helps provide more detail with regards to the secondary plan, and it's going to assist in implementing Trafalgar secondary plan as a mixed-use transit supportive community. We'd like to thank staff for working so collaboratively with us over these past years to prepare this document. And we ask that council support staff's recommendation in endorsing the tertiary plan this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for your delegation. I'm looking around to see if any of my colleagues have any questions of you. Does our commissioner have any comments to make? No? Later? Okay. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Okay, now we're going to move on to delegation number 5, which is from Wendy Roberts regarding item 9.7, staff report COMS 01425 Milton Community Fund. Welcome, Wendy, and you can turn on the mic and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I understand a presentation is going to be put up and I can use this. So if I can just practice. No, I should say that we did try, both myself, we did try to get this PowerPoint loaded, but weren't able to. So this is a PDF version, but thank you very much. So first of all, I want to thank council for allowing me to delegate, especially with such short notice. So Mr. Mayor, Madam Chair, members of council, thank you very much for that. I also just want to acknowledge that there are 10 or so representatives, mostly from the board of Sustainable Milton here tonight. And I want to give a particular shout out to Cheyenne Hussein, who is here from our youth team. very active volunteer with us. So, good evening. My name is Wendy Roberts. I am the chair of Sustainable Milton, an environmental nonprofit. Our goal is to create a sustainable and resilient Milton. We work to reduce the impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss through community engagement, education, and advocacy. Our events, activities, and programs are for the benefit of the Milton community now and for future generations. Our work supports the town's sustainability and climate change goals. You won't be able to see all of this because it's not the PowerPoint, but I believe all of you have received a copy this evening. I'm here tonight to speak to the Milton Community Fund item on the agenda 9.7. We appreciate that the Community Fund Advisory Committee has a difficult task. They have a lot of applications to review and they dedicate an enormous amount of their time. We are very appreciative of the funds we have received from the Milton Community Fund in the past and for the 44,850 being recommended for 2026. It has made a huge difference to our ability to deliver services. I want to emphasize that we are not asking for more money from the Milton Community Fund this evening. We are asking for approval to spend some of the recommended funds on liability insurance, which was our #1 funding priority in the application, and some for our youth team activities. So this would mean spending less on website operational costs and room rentals, but all within that recommended funding envelope. Council has the authority to amend the recommendations of the committee. You're not going to be able to see this, but essentially on table A, it shows the committee's recommended allocation and how we are requesting funds be allocated. So essentially, we would like to reduce the amount of funding for website operations and room rentals, but just so you know, the room rental money in this year's or 2026 allocation is actually about double what we received last year. So we're confident that we can do that reduction while at the same time increasing or actually getting monies for our liability insurance and also some money for our youth team activities and youth projects. So what I'm asking is that when the agenda item is reached tonight, that a 4th recommendation be added, and that is that Community Fund application number 56 contained in Schedule C be approved for $4,850 for liability insurance, website operational costs, room rentals, event supplies and equipment for educational projects in the amount set out in the table above. And obviously, we ask that council vote in favor of that additional recommendation. The rationale for this is that this amendment will not change the amount of funding being recommended for us in 2026. For me, most importantly, it will provide funds to our youth team to develop a few of the activities they have identified as being important. Youth-created and youth-led activities are critical to empowering and engaging youth in sustainability work. Financial support from the town for their activities conveys an important message to youth. And it also ensures that Sustainable Milton can pay for its liability insurance, which we need even to rent rooms. We need in order to have our 500+ volunteers participate in activities, and we need liability insurance to apply for grants. So we can't do anything that we do without liability insurance. In the event that council may raise concerns about setting a bad precedent, I say we disagree. There's nothing bad about providing funds for youth-created and youth-led activities, which engage other youth. Our events, programs, and activities support the town's sustainability and climate goals. We engage and educate the community about emissions. We increase the urban tree canopy. We do all sorts of things. Those are outlined there. Again, we're not asking for more money. We're just we're asking to spend it a little differently. I'll leave these photos with you. You've all got copies of them, but they illustrate, picture says 1,000 words, what we've done in 2025. including a 0.3 hectare butterfly meadow to support monarch habitat. We've got a community garden and a Growing Together food share. We build community one garden at a time. We've run repair cafes to keep things out of the landfill and to keep the landfill open. Our youth team has done incredible work. We promote a reuse, recycle lifestyle, eco-films, and so on. I think I'll leave it there. There's our websites, our YouTube channels, and we've done a lot, and we can do a lot more, but we need liability insurance to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your presentation and thank you for the good work you do in our community. I'm going to ask around and see if there is any questions for you from my colleagues. I don't see any. So thank you for coming up tonight. Moving on to delegation number 6, and it is from Stephanie Fleming regarding item 9.1 relating to staff report DS 06725 technical recommendation report, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment by Slessor Square LP Inc. Welcome, Stephanie. You have the mic. Just turn on the button and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, and members of council. Thank you so much for letting me speak tonight, especially considering the late request to delegate on this matter. I'm here to speak on, my name is Stephanie Fleming, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Slessor Square LP in respect of their application for amendments to the town's official plan and zoning bylaw for many properties, but I'm going to summarize them as 388 Main Street East. And my client thanks the town staff for their very comprehensive review of these applications. I know they're quite, there's been a lot of reports put in and the application was only considered complete on September 15th. And they managed to get their comments back to us by October 28th of this year. As a result of all of those comments, obviously there's quite a few changes that my client is contemplating. With the staff's recommendation to deny, we think that would be we would ask that council instead defer this decision at this time. That would allow my client to work with the town staff to further refine their applications, maybe to bring them into, and hopefully we can come together and possibly reach an agreeable development to both parties. That would, if it were denied at this time, go off to the tribunal. Obviously, that takes any control out of the hands of the town. We're seeking to look at some conceptual changes that can address things like the proposed building transition and height, shadow impacts, relocate the possible access points, deal with the building massing, active street frontages, streetscape improvements, and even more things that were brought up in the public meeting. In short, we hope to continue working with the town on these applications, and we hope that you will defer this decision tonight. Thank you very much. And incidentally, somebody has left their phone here.
Okay, I think someone's left their phone. And I can see Wendy walking over. Thank you. Thank you for your delegation, Ms. Stephanie. I'm going to look around to see if any of my colleagues have any questions for you. I'm seeing none, so thank you so much. Okay, that was the end of our delegations today. We are now moving on to our agenda's public meeting portion. And what we have here is one public meeting. And for this public meeting, I will now call on the town clerk to review the procedure and share it with our council.
Thank you. So this public meeting is regarding town-initiated housekeeping amendments to Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 16, 2014 as amended, and Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 144, 2003 as amended. Council will consider related bylaws later in this evening's agenda. If you wish to be notified of the decision about these applications, please sign the attendance sheet, which is located on the back table in council chambers, or make a written request to town clerk at 150 Mary Street, Milton, or you can email townclerk@milton.ca. Following a presentation from staff, there will be an opportunity for comments from in-person and remote meeting participants. As a reminder, if anyone wishes to connect remotely, the phone number is 1-866-511-0021.
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Clerk. I will now ask our staff, Angela, to provide an overview presentation.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Angela Jansen, Senior Planner in the Development Services Department, and I'm here tonight to provide a brief overview of the proposed housekeeping amendments that are subject to this public meeting this evening. As you know, staff continually monitors the effectiveness of its current comprehensive zoning bylaws, recommending changes through housekeeping amendments, which includes updating, clarifying, and correcting various provisions and regulations resulting from multiple supported variances, revised regulations, matters of interpretation, and suggestions from other departments within the corporation to keep the bylaws as up to date as possible. Staff aim to bring amendments to this nature forward every 6 to 12 months. The town has two comprehensive zoning bylaws, one for the urban area and one for the rural area. With respect to the urban area bylaw, the majority of the housekeeping amendments apply townwide, or at least in the urban area now that we've got the two different bylaws. And we have one site-specific change that relates to mapping for 485, 501, and 511 Ontario Street South. Under the rural area bylaw, the only amendment that we have tonight relates to the entire rural area. This presentation tonight refers to the amendments as provided to the public with the notice. Slight revisions to items 2 and 3 were made in the final bylaws to address inquiries received. For item number 1, I'll just quickly go through each of them just in case there's any sort of question. The first item is to update the site-specific Natural Heritage System Star 337 zone to reflect the revised floodplain mapping and regulated area of conservation Halton, which applies on 485, 501, and 511 Ontario Street South. The regulated floodplain changed after the zoning for the site was approved. And the two maps up here just sort of show you where the area was, and the resulting change is proposed through one of the amending bylaws that you'll consider later this evening. Ooh, they are pretty small. With respect to the other amendments, this was also on our town's website and in your agenda package. Item number 2 related to the definition of lot, and we made some revisions to clarify its intention as it relates to parcels of land in the same ownership that have not merged. In the final amending bylaw 107/2025 for your consideration later on, staff separated out the beginning of the definition from the plan of condominium reference so that they were distinct references and that conveyance of units within a plan of condominium wasn't confused with the overall or the initial land parcel that was being described. For item number 3, staff have introduced general provisions to clarify how the review of plans of condominium are currently undertaken following site plan approval of a comprehensive development plan. The goal of the language is to recognize the most common situations that the town has handled to date, as staff does not always know what the condominium plan will look like, or if the development will contain multiple condominium registrations, which can complicate zoning reviews later. Staff acknowledge that there could be other scenarios covered by the provisions presented, and if that occurs, they can be addressed through remedies such as minor variance applications. While eliminating the lines created by boundaries of condominium applications that are only created for registration purposes is beneficial when we have a comprehensive development plan, there are conditions where internal units within a single condominium application, for example, general grade related products such as single, detached, semi-detached, and townhouses, need to contain detailed lot boundaries in order to determine where certain improvements, for example, decks, sheds, and air conditioners, etc., can be located for each unit. This would be similar to how a freehold lot within a plan of subdivision is treated. Subsection II has been added to clarify this scenario where the removal of lot lines would not apply where the plan of condominium creates separate units or associated parcels of tied land, creating grade-related product and private outdoor amenity space at grade associated with each dwelling unit. Minor tweaks to the text in the final amending bylaw 107/2025 in the agenda were added to address concerns that were raised by applicants. Number 4, this amendment was accidentally omitted from the 2024 housekeeping amendments brought forward for council consideration in January 2025, which addressed parking rates for apartment buildings, as it was in a separate table from the revisions that were approved earlier. This change is consistent with the reasoning provided in staff report DS 00625, which was to reduce the parking rates in accordance with current best practices and site-specific approvals based on recent transportation studies. Item number 5, there was a duplicated footnote reference at the bottom of the table that required changing, and as a result, the subsequent footnotes and references in the permitted use table had to be renumbered. The service retail office use is no longer required as separately identified use, as office uses are now permitted on the ground floor of buildings in the downtown commercial zones, and therefore is proposed to be deleted. For items 6 and 7, staff found a duplicate reference to a holding number that was applicable to 2 separate properties. So to clear this up, one of the holding provisions received a new number, and changes to the various sections that the revised number applies to, as well as the mapping, has been outlined in the amendment. For proposed amendment number 8, the holding provisions implemented for the MTSA area focus mostly on redevelopment that included residential uses. The proposed changes to site-specific section 13.21114 better clarifies how the holding zones will be applied and allows for existing non-residential uses that existed prior to the passing of this bylaw to expand slightly without the need for planning applications such as minor variances. One holding provision is no longer required as it applied to one specific site that is now significantly constructed, so it's been deleted. With respect to our rural bylaw, this provision was intended to be more urban in nature when both the urban and rural areas were under one bylaw. Staff have clarified the intent of the provisions, which is to ensure the protection of the rural area and its residents, and also to address complaints that have been received. In order to update the comprehensive zoning bylaws and to address both the urban and rural matters, there are 3 bylaws that are tabled for you tonight to consider. One would be with respect to the more town-wide amendments in the urban area, the second town-wide amendments in the rural area, and the site-specific matter on its own. With respect to public and agency consultation, notice of the public meeting and the draft amendments were provided on November 19th. They were available on our town's website for the general public. There was direct notification provided to the owner of the Ontario Street property. We did send this out as well to a number of developers and current applicants with condominiums or applications containing multiple lots. There were consultants who often represent applicants and are familiar with the town's zoning bylaws, in which we consulted as well. And we also contacted the agencies, which is a normal process. With respect to our feedback that we received since they have been posted, we did hear from the owner of 485, 501, and 511 Ontario Street that the mapping is satisfactory. Madame did provide a number of questions to test various aspects of the housekeeping amendments, and that was attached to the report. And individual inquiries regarding site-specific circumstances and effect of the proposed changes were also brought forward to us. With respect to the process, we have the public meeting tonight. We also have a recommendation report tabled, given that the housekeeping amendments are minor in nature. Following council's decision and any passing of the bylaw amendments, there'll be a 20-day appeal period. And that's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your presentation. I know we have a speaker, Councillor Best.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Angela, for the work on this. If possibly go back to the slide showing the MTSA, the last urban page. I just have a clarification on that one, because it mentioned there what's the legal use now. But in terms of expansion, I've heard from some businesses that are concerned about this, where they fit under one zone, but if they come under this housekeeping. Okay, we're getting there. Yeah. Okay. It's coming back, yeah. I just wanted to point it out. It doesn't have a page number. Whoops, just a second. Last one. Yeah, here we are. This is a page. It mentions legally established existing zones and permitted, but only uses permitted prior to the lifting the holding bylaw. Does this allow for businesses that we want to expand and have additional unit there to still expand? Because that was a concern of some owners I talked to.
Through the chair to the councillor, do you mean an addition of a unit to the building?
No, just mean that basically there's a number of, especially on the north side of Main Street, and Councillor Malbuff and Challoner know quite aware of it. There's a number of long established businesses there that under these new laws would never be allowed there. Are they still allowed, if they wanted to, they could expand to the next unit?
Oh, okay. Want me to answer? Okay. Sorry. I guess they could. They're allowed to increase their operation to a certain amount. I know this sort of speaks to more additions and square footage, but I think that town staff could consider that as part of the addition.
I just hope you keep that in mind, because we had the similar issue on Nipissing Road where long-term basically businesses there were forced out of town because there was no other zoning available for them.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's noted.
Excellent point, Councillor Best. Looking around to see if anyone else has a question. I'm seeing none. Thank you so much for your presentation. So I will now ask the town clerk to confirm if there are further delegations who wish to speak on this application. There are none, she says, and with that, I'm going to ask in the audience if there's anybody who wishes to speak to this public meeting. I'm seeing nobody. I'm going to ask one last time. Anybody wishes to speak to this public meeting? I see a hand raised. Okay. With that, I have a motion in front of me. I know that there's an amendment. We'll read the motion first, and then we'll go to the amendment part. It is moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Malbuff that staff report DS 07125 outlining town-initiated housekeeping amendments to comprehensive zoning bylaw 0162014 as amended and comprehensive zoning bylaw 1442003 as amended be approved, and that staff be authorized to bring forward amending zoning bylaws in accordance with the draft bylaws attached as Appendix 3, 4, and 5 to report DS 07125 for council adoption. That is the main motion. Now, I believe that there is an amendment that has been proposed by Councillor Kalki, and it has been seconded by Councillor Best, and I'm going to read it out. That the motion be amended to add the following clauses. That council direct staff as outlined in report DS 07125 to maintain the parking rate in the mixed use zone at 1.25 spaces per residential unit, plus visitor parking at the greater of 0.25 spaces per unit or 1 space per 25 meters square of non-residential gross floor area, and that staff incorporate this direction into the implementing zoning bylaw amendment and related parking policy updates. And with that, I will go first to the mover of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to our planner, Angela, for the presentation in relation to this matter. Council may recall back in January 2025, as the planner mentioned, we did deal with a similar matter for housekeeping amendments in which the proposal from the town was initiated to reduce the parking requirements for condos, apartment buildings, and other dwelling units, as well as visitor parking spaces. At that point, from 1.50 parking spaces per resident down to 1 parking space per resident. And also a reduction, as I mentioned, to the visitor parking rates at that time. I did put forward a similar amendment at that time, which wasn't successful. And I'm going to try again in this particular portion as well for this one as well. And my position now remains the same as then. I'm opposed to reductions in our parking spaces. What we have seen from Ontario is provincially imposed reductions to parking spaces in certain areas that are near transit corridors. These initiated proposals will be town initiated and result in a reduction of those parking spaces in areas where we at this time in Milton do not have transit to that level to support reduction in parking spaces. We may at some time in the future, depending on council investment into that regard. But at this point in Ward 3, the area that I represent, I know that there's many families, many people in our community, even other parts of the wards as well, that have more than one vehicle. And to reduce parking spaces for residential units down to 1 per residential unit, especially when it's not mandated by the province at this time, I think is a slippery slope, because it results in families and individuals not being able to have a livable option or an option for housing that is contingent upon a satisfactory number of parking spaces. What I would like to emphasize here is that given that these are town initiated, a developer is welcome to come to us and present an amendment to the parking regulations that we have to request a reduction. And then council has that opportunity on a case-by-case basis to decide whether that reduction is warranted based on the location of the development, based on the community in the surrounding area and the needs of the demographics of that community. By making these changes to the minimums, it forces us to, or forces the developer to only provide that minimum amount of parking space, which is, if it's reduced, it creates housing and it creates types of accommodations that may not be livable. I think the motion speaks for itself. All I'm asking is that we maintain what's currently in our existing regulation rather than reduce the parking rates at this time. I have canvassed members of council, and I appreciate that there's some mixed opinions on this. One of the comments was brought to my attention back in that discussion in January and today was housing affordability, that it cost a developer more money in a large amount to build additional parking spaces, in turn may result in additional costs to the purchaser of a home that may not be as much as if they had a less parking space. Again, in Milton today, I don't see any examples of affordable housing from our large-scale developers who do have 1 parking space per residential unit at this time. And I think by reducing this, it's not necessarily going to create more affordable housing in Milton. In fact, I think it provides a barrier for families or students, people in my generation who are looking into the housing market, an opportunity to not consider a condo or an apartment or another dwelling because there's not enough parking there. I'll end it there. If there's any questions members of council have, I'm happy to address those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the seconder of the motion, Councillor Best.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I agree with the mover. Just to highlight, my main concern is looking at mixed uses, which we're going to be seeing a lot more of in this community, especially in the downtown area. Is since these parking bylaws and policies were put in place, we've had an explosion of delivery services, of online shopping, to basically on demand, either not only food but also shopping. And good luck trying to find a parking spots with all these delivery trucks coming and going, as well as vehicles. I've seen situations where laneways have been blocked, travel portion of the roads are blocked, and also making it difficult for customer service. If a customer can't find a space, if we keep reducing it, where's the customer supposed to park? Also, we have a situation, and it's been long-term, at the intersection at Thompson and Dairy Road, which I've received, and I know other councillors have too, where the people that should have been parking in these mixed-use areas are parking on neighboring residential areas, so the neighboring residential area has no place to park, because through the day it's full of employees parking there for 8 to 10 hours. So I hope that council will support this amendment and keep it. And if there is a request and that could be proven that there is a reduced need, let council decide.
Thank you, Councillor Best. I have a speakers list here. Councillor Malbouf.
Just a quick question to the staff to confirm what impact, if this amendment were to pass, do we have an idea of what impact percentage-wise or what the added cost per unit would be, or because there's such a variance, it's hard to tell?
Okay, I think we should go to Jill now. Yeah.
Through the chair to the councillor, a couple of things I'd like to clarify on this amendment. Well, first of all, to answer your question, each underground parking stall costs in the order of about $125,000 per stall to construct. So developers would put that into the cost of a unit. Now, having said that, what staff is recommending are minimums. That doesn't negate a developer from trying to sell additional parking spaces to a purchaser. It's a choice. And quite often in today's economy, the developers are uncoupling the parking from the unit, still providing the minimum parking amount. But for a resident that does want 2 spaces, they can purchase an additional space, and perhaps an owner that doesn't have a vehicle could opt not to purchase a parking space. So I think that's a critically important piece of all of this. We're not requiring this as the parking standard. It is the minimum required, but the builders will build what will sell as well, right? And so there's nothing in this that is forcing builders to build less parking. So I just wanted to mention that and explain that. But certainly requiring an addition to the minimum parking standard, or by not reducing it today, it does add significant costs to individual units in the order of about 5% of the purchase price.
That's my last question. I'll have comments at appropriate time.
Thank you, Councillor Malbouf. I have Councillor Ijaz next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this amendment. Parking availability has consistently been one of the most common concerns raised by Milton residents, especially near and denser neighborhoods. We continue to hear from residents about insufficient parking, vehicles spilling onto surrounding streets, and the impact this has on day-to-day convenience. Reducing the minimum parking requirements for mixed-use buildings at this time, when Milton is already struggling with parking shortages, would only intensify an existing problem. Until we have stronger transit connections and alternative transportation options fully in place, lowering parking obligations risks creating avoidable pressures in our communities. The amendment retains the 1.25 parking spaces per dwelling unit and maintains visitor parking requirements, which reflects a more realistic picture for Milton's current needs. Maintaining the existing rate is a practical step, and I believe it protects residents from future complications. For these reasons, I'm supporting the amendment. I encourage my colleagues to do the same, to consider the real-world parking challenges our residents are already facing every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ijaz. Next is Councillor Challoner.
Madam Chair, I have no questions. I have comments, so you can put me down for the comment list before we vote.
I think you can go right ahead with the comments.
Yeah, I mean, in January, I was chairing the meeting, and I am sympathetic to what Councillor Kalki has identified. But I think there's a misunderstanding, as has been outlined by the commissioner, as to what this really means. And I'm further a little bit concerned that this is coming forward now at this late time with no background information provided, and a clear misunderstanding as to what is proposed. And so I think that the best course of action is as staff prepares the final bylaw, if they reach out to council with a thorough explanation as to what is happening under this housekeeping requirement, so that everybody understands what is and what isn't, because I've already heard in some of the summations around this table over the last minute, a misunderstanding of what staff is actually proposing.
Okay, thank you. I think staff have taken that under advisement. And we have Councillor Minikakis next.
Just curious, staff, if it costs about $125,000 to build a parking spot, so the builders will they still build the same number of parking spots?
They are required to build the minimum as prescribed in the zoning bylaw. So if council does approve this amendment in a mixed use building, which you've already approved in a high density apartment building, 1 parking spot for every unit will be required, period. Okay, they can produce additional parking spaces, but 1 per unit is required. And we're recommending dropping the visitor rate from 0.25 per unit to 0.2 per unit. So those 2 minimums would have to be honored by the developer, but they're minimums.
Do we know what the developer charges for a parking space, for additional parking space at this point on average?
I don't have that information with me right now. I just know the construction costs are for any underground parking space is over $100,000 to construct.
Thank you, Councillor Menakakis. As a second time speaker, Councillor Kalki.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just for some clarity purposes for council as well, just to build off of the comments made by the commissioner. Parking minimum is what we would set for the developer if we reduce this. It would be a reduced parking minimum. However, if the developer wishes to build additional parking spaces is the question. Vice versa, if we maintain the parking spaces requirements for the minimums the way they are, similar to the case I made back in January, the onus is now on the developer to present to council as to why they're seeking an amendment from council to reduce the amount of parking they wish to provide for their development. Council then deliberates that specific development and decides if that reduction or any other amendments or changes are warranted. So what I'm arguing and I'm saying here is that let's put the onus on the developer to make the case to us, and council then decides if we want to reduce the rates further based on the location of the development itself, and contingent upon the various community factors that exist in each of our respective wards. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Councillor Malbo first, and then Councillor Marshall. Councillor Marshall has a question.
Thank you. Question for Commissioner Hogan. Can you give us a sense as to whether prior to the amendment in January, what the development community was asking for in their applications when the previous minimums were applicable, just so we can get a sense as to what was going on?
Certainly, through the chair to the councillor, this council approved a number of reductions to the minimum to this exact standard. And it was demonstrated time and time again with those development applications that the 1 space per unit and the 0.2 visitors worked, and it is appropriate for high-rise development today.
And so am I correct that the developers were then bringing or minor variances or whatever the technical language is in order to reduce it, and those were being approved by council in those applications?
Correct.
That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Malbouf next.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so I'll not be supporting the amendment. Our staff with decades of combined experience in this area spent hours on this issue. We made the decisions in January, and our staff has made a recommendation, and I have complete confidence in their findings. I will not bring into question their years of experience in this area, and I would urge council to support the staff recommendation as presented. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Challoner.
Like Councillor Malbouf, I won't be supporting the amendment, and I think that there is a misunderstanding. I hope that it now is understood better. But again, Madam Chair, I think it would be advisable for staff to provide further clarity in writing so that council fully understands. This is not the appropriate discussion at this point in time with no background information. Councillor Malbouf is quite right. We have a professional staff. They understand this issue intimately. And before council considers a matter like this, they need to understand the matter intimately, and I don't think that we all do. And I had asked the mover to withdraw it, which I still think he should, and give staff the opportunity to get back to council with a fulsome response. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Challoner. I'm going to look around and see if any of my colleagues have any other comments, questions, concerns. I'm seeing none, so I'm going to call the vote on this amendment. All those in favor of the amendment? And all those opposed? Amendment fails. So we will now go back to the main motion without the amendment, which failed, and I have read it already, so I'm going to call the vote on that. All those in favor? And it passes. With that, we are moving on to items for consideration. And this is item 9.1, which is the technical recommendation report, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment by Slessor Square LP Inc. And I'm going to read the motion first. It is moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Malbuff that staff report DS 06725 outlining applications for amendments to the Town of Milton official plan and Town of Milton urban zoning bylaw 0162-014 as amended to facilitate the development of a high-density mixed-use building be denied. And with that, I'm going to go to our Commissioner Jill Hogan for any introductory comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report before you this evening is recommending refusal of the development application. We've been clear from the outset that the height and density being proposed is inappropriate. And throughout the review process, the applicant has not been willing to reduce either to a level that aligns with town policy. Now, the proposal, as this council knows, it does directly conflict with both our mature neighborhoods study and the mobility hub study. It ignores the built form, transition, and density expectations established through those council-endorsed frameworks. This application also fails to conform to the official plan. It certainly represents an overdevelopment of the site, and it leaves key technical issues unresolved. So in its current form, it does not reflect the plan context or the vision council has set for the area. It is important that council make a decision on the application this evening. If council does not make a decision this evening, the applicant can appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal for lack of decision, and the clock is ticking on that. The next council meeting would be too late for this council to make a decision. So we are recommending refusal, and should the applicant decide to appeal that decision, if council agrees, we will have a very strong position at the OLT to fight this proposal. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for giving us that summary. I have a speakers list here, and starting with Councillor Best.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Development Commissioner on this item. Just one question regarding the OLT, which I think we're going to end up with anyway. What has there been track record on these type of issues where you have something that totally violates all the town planning policies, compatibility policies, height and zoning and secondary plans?
Through the chair to the councillor, we have been undertaking a scan of recent Ontario Land Tribunal decisions in relation to applications very similar to this one, where the density and height is completely out of whack with the official plan and zoning bylaw provisions. And those applications have actually failed at the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Right, thank you. And Madam Chair will have some comments later.
Thank you, Councillor Best. I have Councillor Challoner next.
Thanks, Madam Chair. My question to the Commissioner is, how would you compare the consultation process with this applicant versus the consultation process that has taken place further east on Main Street in my ward around the GO train station, all the developers in that area? How would you compare the consultation efforts?
My comparison with this particular applicant in this particular application, there was no consultation with the surrounding community.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Challoner. I'm looking around to see if any of my other colleagues have any questions for our Commissioner Jill Hogan or any staff member. Councillor Best.
Thank you. I'm sure just be, first of all, asking for a recorded vote on this item as the ward councillor. And I know it's Councillor Minikakis, who again got thrown into some other issues in the last few weeks. Three things. One, as Councillor Challoner pointed out, there was no consultation. As the ward councillor, I was not consulted before it came on our desks. Secondly, the applicants made no heed to the town bylaws in terms of the height and conformity. I've talked to other builders in that area that had to go through a rigorous process of being compatible with the neighboring area. And, you know, the idea of deferring it and revising it, as the Commissioner stated, it's too late for that. We have to make a decision tonight. And I just last week walked past the Royal York Hotel and I just noticed the side towers are both 18 stories tall. If anyone can visualize the Royal York Hotel being dropped in the middle of this residential neighborhood or mixed use, as many of the speakers came to our last meeting, they want to see redevelopment here, but in keeping with the neighborhood, go to 6 stories, maybe even a bonus to 8. If it's compatible, if it doesn't affect the solar panels on the north side of Main Street, has adequate traffic and parking provisions, because all you have to do is look at how many cars are parked there now. Where's the customers going to park? So it asks for recorded vote, and I appreciate all the delegations that came to our last meeting and highlighted the concerns that the applicant didn't cover.
Thank you, Councillor Best. Well said. Councillor Challoner next.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I agree with Councillor Best. Deferral is not appropriate. The matter needs to be denied. And I certainly am in favor of the staff report. Consultation is a very important thing, not only with the residents who live nearby, but it's also important to pull in the ward councillors as well as staff and really have an open mind about what can and cannot be done. And quite frankly, this could have been easily avoided. We have many examples of development that has taken place in this community that has gone very well because there was proper consultation and a real partnership with town staff and council. That's missing, and so they'll have another opportunity to do it the right way the next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Challoner. Next speaker is Councillor Kalki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with my colleagues, Councillor Best and Councillor Challoner, as well as the other members, and staff's recommendation to deny this proposed development. It's not suited for that area, and like my colleagues mentioned, it does not address the concerns that were raised by the community, as well as council, as well as our staff. And I will be supporting the recommendation to deny the development, encourage council to do the same. Thanks.
Thank you. I have next speaker, Councillor Minakakis.
I too am in favor of denying this project. It's an overwhelming project that gets put into a neighborhood that's not well fitting. Looking around Main Street and how that's designed, trying to deal with traffic, trying to deal with emergencies, it's just not a good fit. What staff had originally proposed is a good fit. This is not, and it has to be denied.
Thank you, Councillor Minakakis. Any other speakers on this matter? I'm seeing none. I will just share some of my own comments. I just want to congratulate the residents who gathered on short notice and were so incredibly organized in how they presented to council. 30 plus delegates. Your hard work is paying off tonight. So a big congratulations to all of you for working so professionally and getting it done. And like Councillor Best mentioned, you're not against development. You're just against something that does not conform with our official plan. And had this been approved, it would set a precedent, but which we do not want in our protected heritage downtown areas. So thank you. And those are my comments. And with that, I will now call the vote. And it is a recorded vote.
Thank you. So I'll call the vote for item 9.1. So looking to call the vote for those in favor of the motion, which is the staff recommendation. So all members of council in favor, please stand. Mayor Krantz, Councillor Kalki, Councillor Best, Councillor Challoner, Councillor Marshall, Councillor Melbuff, Councillor Minakakis, Councillor Jazz, and Councillor Ali. That's carried.
Okay. Now we're moving on to item carried unanimously. Congratulations to the neighborhood. Thank you for that applause. We appreciate it. Okay, we're moving on to item 9.2, which is a technical report, a zoning bylaw amendment application by 2369219 Ontario Inc. And for that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Melbuff. These two have been busy this day. that application Z0225 for an amendment to the Town of Milton's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 016-2014 and Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 144-2003 as amended be approved, and that staff be authorized to bring forward an amending zoning bylaw in accordance with the draft bylaws attached as appendices 1 and 2 to the report DS 06625 for council adoption. And I have read this motion too, and I'm going to again call on our Commissioner Jill Hogan to share some comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This application would allow a transportation terminal on the urban portion of the property, and it would also protect the natural area around the watercourse. So 2 zoning changes are required, one to permit the industrial use and one to formally map and safeguard the natural heritage system and allow for very much needed stormwater management features. This proposal, it meets all provincial, regional, and town policies, and town staff is recommending that council approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions to our staff? Councillor Challoner.
I don't have a question, Madam Chair, just a comment to staff with respect to this, which I raised when this first came before us in the form of a public hearing. There's a premier business park going up across the street from what is proposed. And I just hope that everybody keeps that in mind as this goes through the construction phase and the design phase, because it's going to be a different part of the community in the next 5 to 10 years. Pretty significant industrial park. And I hope that the developer keeps that in mind as they move forward with this application.
Thank you for those comments. Are there any questions or comments from any members of council? I'm seeing none for now. I just have a quick question for Commissioner Hogan. There's been some talk about the need for expanding a squeezing line. Is that something in the pipelines?
It's not in the pipeline today, but as part of this application, any improvements to a squeezing line that are required as a result of this will be undertaken by the applicant.
Thank you. Yes, I was considering that because, you know, we are adding a transit hub there, so we might need more lanes. Okay, thank you for that clarification. And with that, I'm going to call the vote. I'm not seeing any other comments here, so I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to item 9.3, which is a technical report, Town of Milton Housing Strategy. I'm going to read the motion. It is moved by Councillor Challoner, seconded by Councillor Malbeuf, that Council approve the Housing Strategy and Action Plan attached as Appendix 1 and Appendix 2 to Report DS 06525, and that Council direct staff to continue implementation of the identified short, medium, and long-term actions contained within the Housing Strategy Action Plan. And that council directs staff to continue to monitor achievement of the outcomes of the housing strategy based on the metrics of success outlined therein. Report back to council on the progress made on the housing strategy outcomes and action plan implementation on an annual basis. With that, going back again to our Commissioner Jill Hogan for any introductory comments on this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I provide comments, I do want to thank Kelly Martell, who was hired on contract to undertake this work for us. And Kelly is in the audience today, and I just wanted to thank her for all of her hard work. So tonight we're asking council endorse the Milton Housing Strategy. And really what this strategy is, it's our 10-year plan to improve housing affordability and expand choices for housing in Milton. What it does is it outlines how we will increase supply, diversify housing options, and work with partners to deliver more affordable and deeply affordable homes. Annual reporting will keep us accountable and responsive. Now, I just want to highlight some of the key targets for council's information. So of 60,000 new ownership units by 2051, 24% of those units are targeted to be priced below market. In terms of rental, we're looking at a target of about 21,000 new rental units by 2051, with 28% of those being affordable, including deeply affordable units that could be delivered by Halton Region and partners. Now, just to remind council of the affordability benchmarks in Milton and Milton specific, there is a formula to calculate this. And in Milton, an affordable purchase price is in the order of $535,000, and affordable rent in the Milton context is considered $1,700 a month. Now, on this agenda tonight, and as mentioned by the earlier delegations, our draft official plan is up for consideration for engagement this evening. And the recommendations from the housing strategy have informed this draft official plan. And the official plan will be one of the key implementing tools of all of these actions. We did a lot of community input on this strategy, and we are asking council to approve the housing strategy and action plan so that we can begin implementing the priority items. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogan. It was quite a lengthy read, but very interesting. So I really congratulate you and your team for moving this forward. Now looking around to see if any of my colleagues have questions. Councillor Challoner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Part of the driving force behind this was funding from the federal government. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was a requirement of the Housing Accelerator Fund to undertake a housing strategy.
And my understanding was they were pretty explicit in terms of, what they saw as goals and objectives. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's, Madam Chair, part of my concern. And I appreciate the work that was done, particularly around trying to define what affordability is. And I think we all acknowledged at that meeting, which was in the spring, that it's a bit of a mug's game. And I think people will be very surprised to see an affordable unit at $535 and affordable rent at $1,700 a month. That's not affordable. There's probably one thing that probably should be highlighted in this report a little more than it has been, Madam Chair, as well as in the report, the Trafalgar Tertiary Plan and the We Make Milton Official Plan, and that is Milton's role in terms of driving affordability and driving housing. Housing is market driven. It's not driven by the town of Milton. We approve the land use, and then it's up to private developers to decide how they will build and what they will build. And I think that needs to be highlighted, because what I'm concerned about is that this comes back on us if it doesn't work out, or if it changes. And I think we all know it's going to change. And so I think there's some clarity required, not only in this report in that regard, but in the others. And then there's the objectives, and I'm not going to, suggest to the commissioner or to council that they be changed. But EDI, really, a human resources objective in, covering planning, built form. I understand why it's there. It's another level of government telling us this is a requirement to get their funding. That may change. Prime Minister Carney has been taking that kind of language out of a lot of things lately, most recently our international global policies. It's rather strange. Is there, Commissioner, any opportunity beyond that? I'm not discussing EDI, but certainly with respect to being a market-driven economy, market-driven housing, to make it clearer that what our limitations are, what our responsibilities are versus the development community.
Through the chair to the councillor, when the original presentation was made to council, we did make it very clear what was a town responsibility, what was a provincial responsibility, what was a regional government responsibility. And you're absolutely right. The town of Milton, we're in the business of processing market-driven development applications. Absolutely. But can we partner with Halton Region on an affordable housing project? Certainly. Can we seek funding for more affordability? Certainly. And I think the DEI lens that you mentioned, I would look at that more so at marginalized populations, such as a shelter for abused women. I'm just throwing that out there, but that's how I would interpret that DEI. It's looking at the full spectrum of housing and ensuring that all members of our population have an option. So it's not an HR lens, it's more of a community context lens, if that helps.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Challoner. Thank you, Commissioner Hogan. Anybody has any other questions? Councillor Kalki.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to congratulate staff on and thank them for all the work that they've done in relation to this strategy. I had some conversations with the commissioner earlier today as well in relation to this. And, in Ward 3, I was discussing with the commissioner about, a local developer who is shovel ready, is working on his project that's, looking into establishing more purpose-built rental units and affordable units for those in the communities and is eager to, potentially look at more incentives and more funds to help construct even more to the realm of 50 more affordable units with support staff and those key supports that people need who are experiencing issues pertaining to accessing and attaining housing. In relation to, opportunities for what can happen next, I know the housing strategy talks a very strong theme about creating conditions that will be required for the town of Milton, for our developers to incentivize them essentially to build affordable units and attainable units. One of the things I would ask our commissioner to do, and I know we spoke earlier, Commissioner, is looking at the new funding stream through Build Canada Homes and seeing if there's an opportunity for Milton to canvass some of our local developers to assess what potential exists and maybe put forward a proposal to that new federal funding stream to access more money, to be able to incentivize developers to create more of those very important units that are much needed, especially for young people who are looking to enter the housing market. My colleague mentioned equity, diversity, and inclusion. And again, and I appreciate the commissioner highlighting the perspective that the town has on that. It's a concept that's very important to me. And I think we need to have that in there. It's something that should be a central theme of how we support the conditions for attainable housing in this community, is ensuring that the marginalized communities, the youth of our community and others who have socioeconomic and cultural barriers towards accessing housing have an opportunity to be able to have something that caters to them so that they can also be part of the housing market should the conditions be allotted. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I appreciate that that was included in the report before us. Madam Chair, nothing further. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kalki. Commissioner Hogan, do you have a response or any comments to add? None? Okay. I'm looking around to see Councillor Minikakis.
Just have a comment about affordability. It's a very elusive subject because a friend of mine, he's the food doctor, and he said that the average four-person family is going to pay $17,760 in groceries in 2026. If you take $100,000 income before taxes, you get down to 70,000, right? A lot of things start failing in terms of getting to affordability. It's a very elusive and fast-moving subject because the public today is chasing the future. You already have an affordability issues created by the dynamics of COVID and greed. And now you've got, people trying to earn more money. At 2% annual growth in incomes, when inflation is accelerating beyond that, and house prices can boom very quickly based on demand, that becomes a dream. You're trying to reach for the stars again. I applaud everything that staff have done on this. I just think that we have to also have a measure of reality on what affordability means. And there's a lot more work that needs to be done to get there.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Minikakis. Any other members of council have any comments? I'm seeing none, so I just want to add my own perception of what I felt like when I read this report. I think it's a very well done report, and I do know that there is a page that is dedicated to showing what we can control as a local municipality and what is with the region and the province and then with the federal government. And I really appreciated that. I actually wanted to share it on my socials so people also understand where we can actually make a difference as a local municipality. Now, the word incentives was used. I would like to know if there's any current incentives available for home buyers that we provide, or any that we aspire to achieve through fundings from other levels of government, so that perhaps this council can advocate and for the town of Milton on behalf of our planning department.
Through the chair, today, we do have some incentives, and they're financial incentives. One of those relates to discounting of development charges for rental housing, and the discount is dependent on the number of bedrooms. With there being more bedrooms, the higher the discount, up to 2,500 per unit. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, that was for building permit fees. It's just the incentive is increases on the development charge fee based on the number of units. And similarly for building permit fees, and we've implemented this through government grants, we do allow for refunds on building permit fees, and that one is up to $2,500 per unit for rental and affordable housing.
Thank you so much for highlighting that. I know that when it comes to social services and housing, we have the Halton region, and we do that through a committee there. And having said that, there are opportunities locally too. We just have to make sure we have the right partners. And our last comment on the DEI mention, the word DEI, the acronym has become a bad word for some reason. But I do want to say that if it means getting shelter homes for women escaping abuse, I will support it. I will support DEI. So I guess every community has a different interpretation of what it means to them. So I really appreciate the commissioner's comments with regarding to how we are taking this into account. Thank you so much. With that, I'm not seeing any other comments, so I think I should call the vote now. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to another very interesting item, which is 9.4 town-wide retail commercial needs analysis. And I'm going to read a motion here moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Malbuff, that council endorse the findings of the town-wide retail commercial needs analysis attached as Appendix 1, and that council direct staff to incorporate the findings and directions of the town-wide retail commercial needs analysis into the town's new official plan. And before I go to our commissioner to share her comments on this, I would like to just invite all the people of Milton who are asking for a better mall, better shops, Costco, to please read this report. Over to you, Commissioner Hogan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, we are asking that council endorse the townwide retail commercial study that was undertaken by Tate Research on behalf of the town. And the findings in that study are really clear, and it's not a surprise. Milton, we're currently underserved in terms of retail space, and our population has grown faster than commercial development. So this study recommends that our new official plans strengthen the protection of existing retail areas, support new and flexible retail formats, and ensure future communities are planned with appropriate commercial services. Now, these recommendations coming out of this study have informed the draft official plan that is also on the agenda this evening, where we are seeking council direction to engage with the public. So the goal of this is to ensure that Milton has the retail capacity needed to serve residents now and into our future as we continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hogan. Councillor Challoner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'm supportive of what is proposed. One of the things we discussed before the 97 plan was consideration of doing this kind of a study every 5 years roughly. The one thing we didn't do was request that the official plan itself be reviewed every 5 years, and in retrospect, 25 years later, maybe we should have. But perhaps with the new official plan, that'll be one of the requirements, Madam Chair. But my question to, through you to the commissioner is, what do we give consideration when you look at the phalanx of reports that are going into supporting the new official plan, getting on a review schedule that perhaps we look at this every 5 years? The other question I have is around parking and some of the comments that are made by the consultant, and are you satisfied with them from that perspective?
Through the chair, the province now legislates municipalities to review their official plans every 5 years, so you'll be seeing us then. In terms of parking, it's such a push and pull with parking on everything. And of course, this report says, you know, the car is king, and people want convenience with their vehicle to be able to park very close to the entrance of a store, etc. So we have to be very mindful of this. And they are definitely competing interests moving forward. But I think too, like what we're doing through our comprehensive planning, you know, there are areas like no matter how you cut it, a Walmart or a Costco, you've got to drive to it. It's the nature of that type of retail establishment, and it's understood, and it really is pointless trying to change that. But what we're lacking and where we could improve is bringing some smaller commercial uses to serve individual neighborhoods. And in those instances, and in my opinion, parking isn't a real driver for that, because people do want to walk to a local store and have that in close proximity. So I think it depends on the context. I mean, while I hate huge parking lots and vehicle dependency, a Costco is what it is, and we have to be practical when we're planning for these things.
Yeah, and to add to that, apparently a Costco parking lot can be a very entertaining place to be. But anyway, we won't go down that path. So back to the third part of the question, should we be reviewing this every 5 years along with the official plan? And are there other documents that we used to help write the official plan that we should also be considering doing every 5 years?
Through the chair, we would look at the official plan comprehensively every 5 years, and we would look at sort of the major categories of the official plan. And if there are substantive changes, you know, within those 5 years on sort of that commercial retail landscape, we would certainly update that work as a new input. But an official plan review doesn't necessarily have to be a complete rewrite of the official plan. There may just be targeted areas that we update, and this may or may not be one of them, just depending on the context at the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Challoner. I have Councillor Minikakis next.
So our commissioner hit home, because I've spent 35 years in the consumer retail sector. It's great to see that we're going to have, you know, push for this kind of development. But fresh on my mind is also the fact, and it's a comment more than anything, is that while I was running for office and knocking on doors, I tripped over a lot of packages at the doors. And, you know, the consumer market is shifting. And I'm glad to hear that we're going to be looking at this every 5 years, and maybe even sooner, because the marketplace is shifting with technology, artificial intelligence. Consumers are changing their behaviors. Retailers are changing their offers and their propositions. Stores are becoming more about experiences, not always about buying. And that is the paramount difference that's occurring today. And I just want to be cautious of the fact that we're careful that we're not, you know, putting too much emphasis on the growth of stores, and that's going to bring a lot of business, because in my past life, I would probably never have opened a store in Milton. You can boo me later, because the market dynamics weren't there from an economy point of view. I needed 40% of the population to work locally and have good paying jobs. I wouldn't bring a retail chain here. That may change over time, but that practice is still there. So you're going to get small retailers. I agree with you, service-oriented businesses, they're going to be resilient in the future, particularly if they're walkable and they're local. That makes sense to me. So I applaud you for doing all of this.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this very unique perspective. Really makes you think. Thank you. Looking around to see if there's any other speakers. I'm seeing none. I just want to congratulate our staff again, Commissioner Hogan and her team for doing a really thorough analysis. I do see that there was mention of protecting commercial spaces because all of our future growth is attached to density when it comes to commercial places. One thing I just want to mention is that I agree with Councillor Minnakakis that, retail industry is changing. And, it's more about experiences. Having said that, we do need a lot of office space. And one thing that I do like about density and having mixed use in there is that that can be converted into office space as well, which is something a lot of entrepreneurs in Milton are always looking for. So thank you. I just wanted to share that insight. And now that all of the comments have been exhausted, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? It is passed unanimously. Today is a great day for urban planning nerds like myself. We are moving on to item 9.5, which is the Trafalgar Tertiary Plan, and I'm going to read the motion. It is moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Malbuff that Council endorse the Trafalgar Tertiary Plan attached as Appendix 1, and that the Commissioner of Development Services have the authority to approve any updates required to the road network assessment, and further that prior to any draft plan approval within the Trafalgar Secondary Plan, the Master Environmental Servicing Plan shall be finalized and endorsed by the Conservation Halton Board. And with that, I'm going to go to our commissioner again for her comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So tonight we are recommending that staff or that council, my apologies, endorse the Trafalgar, we've already endorsed it, the Trafalgar Tertiary Plan. And this tertiary plan, it is a requirement of the overarching secondary plan. And what it does is it provides a detailed framework needed for individual development applications to proceed. So over the past year or so, we have been working very closely with our agency partners and various landowners to finalize this plan. And what's important to note in this plan is it's more granular than a secondary plan. It sets out how roads, servicing, parks, schools, natural areas, and community amenities will be coordinated across the entire geography. So with Council's endorsement this evening, the expectation is that when plans of subdivision are applied for and come forward, they will be consistent with the tertiary plan. So the endorsement of the tertiary plan this evening, it will allow for the orderly and well-planned development to move forward in our new growth area known as the Trafalgar Tertiary Plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that explanation. I'm going to look around and see if any of my colleagues have any questions. I am seeing none. Not everybody loves urban planning like me. Well, with that, I'm going to call the motion. I have no questions myself. All those in favor? It is approved unanimously. Moving on to item 9.6, which is VMake Milton Official Plan Public Engagement. And I have a motion here in front of me, moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Malbuff, that Council directs staff to seek feedback on the consultation draft of the Milton new official plan. And that Council directs staff to complete a final draft official plan taking into account the feedback received through the consultations where appropriate, and that a new user fees of $275,422 and $87,634 plus peer review costs to be introduced effective December 9th, 2025 to recover the cost of privately initiated secondary plan applications and urban boundary expansion applications respectively, and that these fees be added to the town's user fee bylaw at the next available opportunity. Going again to Commissioner Hogan for her comments.
Through the chair, we will be making a staff presentation this evening, and it will be led by Gail Anderson, and she is our senior planner that has been leading the official plan. But I do want to highlight all of the staff that have been involved in this under David Twig's leadership. The entire planning policy team has joined forces to get this on the agenda this evening. So I just want to thank everyone on the policy team, and also want to thank all of town staff, because there were some pretty tight turnaround times for review and comment of the various policies. So I'm going to hand it off to Gail, but I just wanted to congratulate the team for getting to this important milestone. Thank you.
Welcome, Gail. You can start your presentation now.
Thank you. So good evening, Madam Chair, Mayor Worship and Council. My name is Gail Anderson. I'm a senior planner on the Planning Policy and Urban Design team. And I'm pleased to be here today to provide you with a presentation and an update on the We Make Milton official plan in a review and update. The official plan review and update project did begin back in 2019. And at that time, we began with a phase called listening and learning. And that phase involved a lot of community consultation and meeting with our partners, as well as those in the community, to understand the planning issues, the challenges, but also the opportunities. We undertook a lot of community engagement, and that included holding events such as roundtables, where various members of the community came together. There were discussion forums, questionnaires, surveys, and just brainstorming events that the community members had. In 2020, we did an exercising called visioning. And through that exercise, we developed a vision statement. And that statement describes our land use planning aspirations and the principles that will guide our future planning decisions. And this stage, the community engagement included having a visioning night, where we had a guest speaker that was very inspirational and came out to speak with us at the Arts Center. Between 2021 and 2023, we released a series of reports that were called Big Questioned papers. And those papers provided background information and research summaries, but they were also a tool for consultation and for asking the community questions, but also a way of then receiving feedback. We did a lot of informal consultations. In addition, we held events such as we have a booth at the Summer Farmers Market, where as people are walking by, we're able to hand out information and have informal conversations. We held pop-up events at community centers where we would hold a booth and catch people as they come and go. But then we also did more formal consultations where we had a specific open house at a specific time and date. These were both online and in person. Looking to some more recent engagements that we've had, recently, Council earlier this year approved Official Plan Amendment 92. And this was the first set of official plan amendments that began to bring into effect the updated planning policy framework. These policies established overarching framework and kind of high-level direction. And they allowed us to start to refine and respond to updated provincial changes. But during the development of Official Plan Amendment 92, we did online and in-person engagement events. These included events that were occurring both during the day and in the evening in order to recognize the variation in people's schedules. Just to give you an update, Official Plan Amendment 92 has been submitted to the province for approval, and we are awaiting a response for the province. But during the time, we have been in touch with provincial staff. Every now and then they ask us questions and we engage with them as we wait. This time has allowed staff to now develop the detailed implementation policies that fill in that framework. So these detailed implementation policies provide specific guidance when preparing a development application, but also when making a land use planning decision. So now we have a completed plan. We have the new draft policies and the updated schedules. So what we're here tonight looking for permission is to hold now another set of consultations in 2026. So I just wanted to highlight some of the policy changes that we would love to consult on throughout the early months of 2026. So the new policies do address updated provincial direction. So currently, they also respond to the updated and current Milton context, and they respond to comments that were received through the first phase of consultation. For example, the provincial planning statement now requires that municipalities entertain privately initiated requests for urban boundary expansions. And so we have to put in place a framework that's appropriate for addressing those, as well as a fee structure for doing that. We've realized that it is important to engage with our community and with our private developers in understanding urban boundary expansions, but also just in understanding and determining when it's appropriate to move from one phase of development to another within the secondary planning process. And some of our new policies allow us to do that. As we heard in the previous reports that came to council, we've done a number of technical background studies, including reports on facilitating affordable housing and reports on protecting retail commercial space. And so we are proposing new policies that respond to those recommendations and allow those recommendations to be implemented through the official plan. What staff would like to do is to continue to consult and to engage with the public and with our development planner, or sorry, development communities, and some of our neighborhood groups and associations. We do have a number of ways that we're proposing that continue to be done. So there is making information available online through our Let's Talk Milton, as well as through the project planning page. So folks can go and read the entire document. It's there, it's available, the schedules are available, and we want to post it so people can access it and read it. We would like to have a series of public engagement sessions. We want to have both in-person and online sessions. We would like to have some during the day and some in the evening at varying times in order to accommodate different schedules and to be able to get as many people out as we can. We do get requests sometimes from various community groups or organizations or individuals to meet with us, and we'd like to continue to be able to do that. And then we would want people to provide their comments. So there's a number of ways that folks can provide comments. They can submit emails to us, also through the Let's Talk Milton portal. There's the opportunity to provide comments and as submissions. So just to give you a sense then of the timing, currently, right now, we have brought this report to town council. We would like to begin to have some of those consultations in January of 2026 and use January and February to really gather that feedback. Through the Planning Act, we are required to then have statutory consultations before council makes any final decisions on the amended official plan. So we would be looking for later in the year in spring to then have another set of statutory consultations. This would include having a public open house followed by a statutory public meeting. We would be looking for later this year, approximately around June, and these are all approximate timelines to bring back the official plan for council adoption, and then followed by a process of provincial approval. So I do thank you for your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Gail. I have speakers here. Councillor Best first.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Gail, for putting this together, because it's been a lot of work over the last 3 years. Two questions. One, you mentioned about the urban boundary expansions. Are staff still recommending a 75% phasing? Basically, one phase has to be filled before the next phase starts?
Yeah, I see Commissioner Hogan.
Through the chair, they're two different things. So yes, on phasing, yes, we are still recommending that there's a certain percentage build out before moving on to the next phase. Urban boundary expansions are a different thing. So what we're talking about is extending the urban boundary. Now, before, those always had to be done at the regional level through a comprehensive review. And under new legislation, individual property owners can now apply. So what we're proposing to do in the new official plan is create a framework for those applications, criteria that would need to be met, and a fee structure as well. So that's what we're doing. But yes, the phasing is in place.
Okay, I asked that question because I understand from Halton Hills councillors that they're going through similar challenges of where to or not to urban expand. Second question, maybe more difficult one for either of you. Are we anticipating any more changes from the province, either regarding Planning Act, Municipal Act, regional governments, or a host of other things?
For you, Madam Chair, it's difficult to anticipate what changes would come out of the province. But we, as staff, then we take any direction from the province, we analyze it and we apply it to the Milton context. So as any changes do come forward, we would need to respond to it as we're required to do. And we would do that based on either further research or analysis from staff.
Thank you. And hopefully we don't get any surprises like the conservation authorities just got.
Thank you, Councillor Best. Certainly, if you're talking about the province, I think if whatever change is coming, it will be on a Friday night. Okay, looking around to see if any of my other colleagues have any questions. I am seeing none. Thank you so much to you for your presentation and your team for all the hard work you have done. I do get a lot of good positive feedback from the residents about your We Make Milton program. Thank you. Okay, so now that there are no comments or questions, I am going to call the vote. It is, I have already read the motion, so I'm just going to call the vote. All those in favor? All right, that is passed unanimously, and Councillor Best raises his hand while leaving the room. Perfect. Okay. Now we are moving on to item 9.7, which is the Milton Community Fund allocations. Now, as a reminder, we have 2 conflicts of interest declared on this item, so we will be handling this item as 2 separate motions. Councillor Challoner will not be voting on the separate motion relating to application number 30, and Councillor Marshall will not be voting on either motions as she has a spouse who serves on the committee. And so with that, I'm going to read the first motion. It is moved by Councillor Best and seconded by Councillor Malbuff that Milton Community Fund applications number 1 to 61, save and accept number 30 contained in Schedule C be approved, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any agreements associated with the approved recommendations contained within the staff report COMS 01425. And as I said before, Councillor Challoner will not be voting on this as he has a conflict. And he has left the room. And so, ask for comments and questions? Yeah. Are there any comments and questions from any members of council? Councillor Challoner and Marshall have both left their space, so they will not be voting on this. Councillor Kalki has a question.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Just a quick comment to staff. There's no need for a response right now, but there was a delegation in relation to the allocations here or a transitioning of the funds associated to what was given by the committee in relation to the community fund. I'm not too sure how all of that works, but if staff can take that delegation under advisement and if there's an opportunity there to shift some things around, whatever our policies allow us to do, I think that would be something that the group would be amenable to, given the large amount of good work that they do in the community, like many other groups do. Thanks. Nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor Kalki. I think there is a clarification that you have required from the clerk. Or
Madam Chair, I don't need a response right now. I think staff know exactly what I'm referring to. It's just to put that out there.
Okay, I think Commissioner Palmer has.
Through you, Madam Chair, and to the council, I believe it's important to point this out that if there was going to be a change to the allocation, it would have to be done through an amended motion from council this evening. Staff do not have the authority to make that change.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item? I am seeing none. So with that, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. And as I mentioned before, we will be separating the 2 conflicts. So this is the second motion, and it is moved by Councillor Best and seconded by Councillor Malbuff that Community Fund application number 30 contained in Schedule C be approved. And this is the one that Councillor Challoner has a conflict on, so he will not be voting on it. And so with that, I'm going to see if there's any questions or comments on this motion. And this is pertaining to the Historical Society. Okay, there are no questions or comments, so I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? It passes. We are now on item 9.8, which is purchasing various. It is a very long motion, so bear with me. I will be reading it. It is moved by Councillor Challoner and seconded by Councillor Marbuff that council approve the budget amendments and related funding sources as outlined on Schedule A, and the contract award for design, supply, and installation of play equipment for various parks in 2026 to Open Space Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $387,615, exclusive of HST, be approved as outlined on Schedule B. That the contract award for 12-meter conventional transit buses to New Flyer Industries in the total amount of $5,066,612 and 6-meter specialized transit buses to Creative Carriage in the total amount of $876,502 be approved as outlined on Schedule C. That the contract increase for detailed design of the Thompson Road multi-use path to WSP Canada Limited in the amount of $9,720 be approved as outlined on Schedule D. That delegated authority be provided to approve change orders if required up to an aggregate value of 30% of the value of the award to the WSP Canada Limited as outlined on Schedule D. That council approve the limited tendering award of 2026 as per the list of suppliers provided on Schedule E. That the use of delegated authority for a contract increase for the provision of dedicated radio and recording communication links to Rogers Communications in the amount of $70,500 and Bell Canada in the amount of $46,500 be received for information as outlined on Schedule F. That the use of delegated authority for a single source award for peer review services and associated project management for the Egerton Secondary Plan to Malone Given Parsons in the amount of $195,944 and to HDR Corporation in the amount of $124,026 be received for information as outlined on Schedule G. That the emergency contract award for the wood sound fence repairs on Thompson Avenue to Picket Fence Co. in the amount of $35,060 be received for information as outlined in Schedule H. That the emergency contract award for the repair of truck 2310 to Hunt Chrysler in the total amount of $39,092 be received for information as outlined in Schedule I. That the manager procurement be authorized to execute the contracts as outlined by the purchasing bylaw, and the mayor and the town clerk be authorized to sign any required paperwork. I have read the motion. Are there any questions or comments of staff at this time? I am seeing none. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? And that passes. Okay, item 9.9, motion to consider community watch program. And I have the motion in front of me. I'm going to read it out. It is moved by Councillor Kalki and seconded by Councillor Jazz. Whereas Crime Stoppers of Halton is a long-standing community-driven organization dedicated to promoting public safety, reducing crime, and encouraging anonymous reporting of criminal activity. And whereas Crime Stoppers of Halton has expressed interest in formally expanding their Community Watch program to the town of Milton with the aim of increasing community engagement, crime prevention awareness, and neighborhood resilience. And whereas Crime Stoppers of Halton has independently secured the necessary resources and personnel to implement and sustain the initiative locally. And whereas raising awareness, enhancing communication with residents, and supporting the integration of the Community Watch program into our community would ensure its success. Therefore, be it resolved that Council direct Town of Milton staff to meet with Crime Stoppers of Halton for the purposes of outlining opportunities to create awareness of their Community Watch program to Milton residents, and that Council ask Mayor Gort Krantz to release a public statement on behalf of Milton Council to welcome the Crime Stoppers of Halton Community Watch program to the Town of Milton and encourage residents to participate in the initiative, and that a copy of the resolution be forwarded to the Halton Regional Municipality, the Halton Regional Police Service, members of Provincial Parliament and Associate Solicitor General for Auto Theft and Bail Reform, Z. Hamid, Member of Parliament for Milton East, Halton Hills, South, Christina Tesser Dirksen, Member of Parliament for Burlington North, Milton West, Adam Van Couverden, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO. And with that, I'm going to go to the mover of the motion, Councillor Kalki, for comments.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. You heard tonight delegations as well as council from Crime Stoppers of Halton. Just want to thank Karen, Shams, Farshad, and Colin, who both had to leave for another commitment, for attending tonight and for presenting the delegation. And congratulations on the early onset of this new program, and welcome to Milton. And we're very much, as the mayor alluded to, very eager to get this going in this community. And like the mayor said, expanded to the entire town in the coming months. Education and awareness as this program comes into Milton is going to be vital and key to ensuring its success. And that's what this resolution is aiming to do, from the onset of the delegation to the fact that our staff, and I thank Commissioner Scott as well as Tosh Harriet from Communications for meeting with me in relation to this, working with Crime Stoppers by setting up a meeting to identify how they can best, promote and raise awareness for this program, and encourage resident participation is how we're going to make sure that this is successful. There is ongoing concerns from members of the community that have reached out to me, as well as other members of council, in relation to concerns pertaining to community safety, well-being, crime, and all of those factors. And it's safe to say, I think, that it is definitely a big talking point in this community, but as well as other communities across the GTA. Grassroots initiatives like these that mobilize residents and neighbors to look after one another, as well as communicate with each other, not only bring our community closer together, but in this case, they may very well help improve the safety, well-being, and resilience of our community. I ask council for support in relation to this resolution, and I do believe that this initiative will go a long way in the community. Subject to any questions, that's all I have. And Madam Chair, just in the last line there, I'm just realizing there's a bit of an error here where I refer to MP Adam Van Couverden. I think we have to refer to his official title there too. He's Secretary of State for Sport. If you can just add the minor revision in there just so it's properly written. Other councillors are welcome to correct anything else if I don't see it here, but I think that's the only error there. But other than that, thank you very much. And thanks again to Crime Stoppers and staff for this matter.
Thank you for that. I think clerk has noted your advisement, and I also would like to include another recommendation to include the Halton Police Services Board in there as well. With that, going to the seconder of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Crime Stoppers of Halton and its Community Watch Program has a strong history of advancing community safety and encouraging public participation. The expansion of this program into Milton comes at an important time as more residents are looking for accessible ways to report concerns, learn about crime prevention, and contribute to neighborhood safety. As mentioned, with resources already secured by Crime Stoppers, this initiative can move forward without additional pressure on town operations. Supporting this program reflects our commitment to prevention, communication, and community-driven safety efforts. I'm pleased to support this motion, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Thank you. I have Councillor Melbuff next as a speaker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm supportive of the motion and the program. I just have a question to staff. I believe the delegation spoke about one of the items I'll have are lawn signs. How does that conflict with our sign bylaw?
Dramatic pause, apologies. Megan and I are giving ourselves this stare down here as who wants to take this question. We would have to make sure, obviously, that everything abides by the town bylaws. That's sort of the long and short of the answer. The notice of motion is asking us to meet with them to review the opportunities for marketing, and we can certainly address it through that time.
When they have the discussions with the group, I think that should be discussed and resolved.
Thank you. I do know that the signs are allowed on the personal property of any homeowner, so I think that's how it will be applied. With that, I am looking around to see if any of my other colleagues have any questions, comments to add. I'm seeing none. Oh, Councillor Kalki has a second
Madam
speaker.
Chair, I'll just make a quick comment in relation to that conversation. This, Councillor Malbuff, is something I discussed with our staff as well. And I actually want to thank Councillor Challoner for his suggestion on this. When we were looking at the wording that was going to be put into this resolution, that is something we discussed. And, let's have Crime Stoppers meet with our staff, and if there's any obstacles that might be come to light at that time, whether it's where a sign can be placed or not, maybe that can be revisited in the coming months as the program launches. But you make a good point, right? Like if we can't put a sign in a certain spot because of a bylaw, that might, you know, put that program's awareness in question, right? Because I do believe that we need to have maximum awareness and promotion for this program for it to work and mobilize residents to encourage participation. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Councillor Melba?
I support that. I'm just concerned about we might be opening the doors to other issues.
Thank you so much. I think Crime Stoppers here has a sign that we can look at right now, that this is what it will look like. Thank you. Thank you for showing us the sign. And if staff have a graphic, we can just put it up on our screen so people watching can also see what the sign looks like. I did see a hand go up on this side. Was it Councillor Best?
No, I just wanted to mention, as you know, Madam Chair, that the town has a few hundred signs downstairs that fit the same size. If Councillor Malbuff wants them, we've been giving them out the last 2 years for free. If you want one, I could deliver it to you personally.
Thank you. Thanks to Councillor Malbuff. You have been known to walk down your own street and putting up those slow down signs, so I will attest to that. Okay, with that, I'm seeing no other questions or comments. I certainly just really want to thank Crime Stoppers for coming here. I know being on the police board, I see all the good work they do and the real difference they have made in community education, because a lot of people need to realize that safety begins at home, and we have to educate ourselves and our children on how to lock doors and make sure the windows are shut. And it's just little things that add up to making a safer community. Thank you. With that, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Congratulations and welcome to Crime Stoppers. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you who are still sticking around, hats off to you. We try to make this as entertaining as we can, working within our bylaws. We're going to move on to the section of Regional Council update, and I'm going to look around to see if my colleagues at the Regional Council have any updates to share. Councillor Best.
Why not? Just so we have our last regional council meeting on Wednesday, where we're going to be approving the regional budget. I believe we're coming in at 3.3% with a bit of a melding with the police board in terms of additional services there. But it's been a busy year, and who knows what's going to happen next year.
Thank you, Councillor Best. I don't see any other comments from my fellow colleagues at the region, so I'm going to move on to statements by members. Are there any statements about community events or community interest announcements that members wish to share? Councillor Best.
Yes, since this is the last council meeting of the year, I also want to introduce the last Santa Claus Parade of the year. I welcome councillors and staff and the public to the annual 51st Campbellville Annual Santa Claus Parade, starting at 1:30 on Sunday, December 21st. Come in, we even have hot chocolate and cookies afterwards.
Yum. Councillor Malbuff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the December 3rd budget council meeting, we spent 3 hours looking on how to cut a couple of $100,000 from our 2026 operating budget. And today I found out that we wasted close to $350,000 in direct cost plus valuable staff time on an unnecessary by-election, a by-election that saw less than a 17% voter turnout. Less than 2 out of every 10 eligible voters bothered to cast a ballot. That's how much of a demand there was for this by-election. We had the option of appointing the runner-up from the 2022 election at no cost to the taxpayers. That runner-up just happened to have been George Menikakis, who ended up being elected. But instead, the majority of council opted for a by-election in response then to appease certain individuals of our community as well as a couple of political activists. One of those activists delegated to this council and spoke in favor of the by-election option and urged members of council to support that option because she was planning to put her name forward and run as a candidate. The majority of council listened to her and supported her position. And guess what? When the time came, she chose not to put her name forward and run as a candidate in that by-election that she so strongly supported. My point, Madam Chair, is we ended up with the same result had we gone the appointment route as I, Mayor Krantz, and Councillor Chalonar supported. And we would have saved taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. And with that, Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Councillor Best.
Demanding equal time and a Merry Christmas to you too, Councillor Malbuff. Just clarifications from our finance director. Could you quote the exact costs that we have and also how much of that was actually staff time that was already accounted for in our clerk's department?
Through the chair. So direct cost, incremental costs associated with the by-election were $200,523. The additional that was referenced in terms of staff reallocated. So there were staff that were already in the budget that were reassigned. We don't have tracking of the actual hours to translate to a dollar value, but back in May when the council report was approved, there was an estimate for that time that was in the range of 150 to 200,000. So that's where the 350,000 reference came from.
So in other words, that staff time was already allocated that we were going to pay anyway. So we agree to disagree. Just on that point, as I mentioned to the clerk and others, that I've asked the province to look into having Elections Ontario manage all municipal elections, whether it be by-elections or not. And also just to one clarification, when there's a vacancy provincially or federally, there's no appointment. It's always a by-election.
Thank you, Councillor Best, even though the member statement time is for statements only, but I will allow it because I'm enjoying it. Councillor Ijaz.
So we talked about by-election and I only have one line. Elections belong to the people, and if there's an appetite for a by-election, then a by-election is the route we took. Thank you.
Short and sweet. Thank you, Councillor Ijaz. I'm going to look around to see if any of my other colleagues have any statements or comments to make. I will just say welcome to council, Councillor Minakakis, and thank you to all of our staff for the good work they did in holding that election. Staff or council have no control over what the turnout will be, but the price, you can never put a tag on the price of democracy. And with that, I am going to ask around and see if any of my colleagues wish to go into confidential session. There is just one report that is on the agenda in the confidential session. I'm seeing heads shaking in negative. So with that, it means we will not be going into confidential session. So we're almost towards the best part of tonight, which is the end of the meeting. I will now read the motion in front of me, which is moved by Councillor Chalonar and seconded by Councillor Malbuff, that the recommendations contained in staff report CORS 01325 be approved. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? That is passed. Okay, bylaw section. I have a motion moved by Councillor Chalonar, seconded by Councillor Malbuff, that bylaw number 101-2025 through to and including bylaw 117-2025 be read, passed, and numbered, and that the mayor and the town clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaws, seal them with the seal of the corporation, and that they be engrossed in the bylaw book. And I've read the motion. I have a speaker, Councillor Best.
Yes, Madam Chair, regarding bylaw 111-2025, we have a unique situation here where we're renaming a street, which I can't remember us ever doing. We also not only have that, we also have the person it's being named after. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Joe Yaworski in the back, if you'd like to stand up, Joe. And also thank you and your wife Zena for your many years of volunteer service. Hopefully the street signs go up next week because it's well deserved. And I also thank planning staff and specifically Anthony Wong for stick handling this application. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Joe. Thanks for attending tonight, and thank you to your son who lives in my ward. Congratulations on that. Very well deserved. And so I have read the bylaw motion. Are there any other comments? There are none. Calling the vote. All those in favor? That is approved. With that, we come to the adjournment time. I just want to wish the community happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and whatever you celebrate, celebrate kindness this year because there is lack of it in the community. We need to love each other. That is the message of Christmas, and that is the joy of Christmas and the miracle of Christmas. Take care, everyone. Good night. This meeting is adjourned.